Hey everybody, this is Andrew Greer, and we have a special holiday edition of CCM Magazine's Features on Film, and we are with Mr. Marc Martel.
Greetings, sir.
Again, yes. So straight from Canada, except not anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah. Did Christmas look any different I realize it's just our northern brothers.
Yeah, Christmas is one of those that we're just all spread across North America pretty evenly. Well, I don't know that much about Mexico, but we got to include those guys too. But yeah, I think Canadian and U.S. Christmas is pretty monogamous.
We were talking
monogamous.
I don't know.
Monochromatic.
We were talking about how you grew up in a family, in church, Christians, yet in a culture that was fairly. How was Christmas did Christmas have the same kind of influence as maybe it does? Did you celebrate it from a spiritual perspective? That kind of thing.
Sure, all of that. I mean, it was the quintessential North American Christmas, I guess, but with a French-Canadian flair. I mean, the food might have been a little different because, we have that in Quebec. But yeah, we just spent always a night and a sleepover with the cousins and the grandparents, and my dad being a pastor, of course, always the spiritual side is very important, very present. So, yeah, it was nothing too unique.
When you talk about your dad being a pastor, like you as a pastor's kid, I was thinking earlier today, like this kind of evolution in your career, right? From being really in kind of the limelight of Christian music as a frontman of Down Here, and then even think about your history as a pastor's kid, now to fronting the Queen Extravaganza and kind of a poster boy for cover tunes gone viral or something. I don't know how you said that, but you know what I'm saying. And what that has afforded you though is tours and concert dates and in halls and on platforms and with artists that I can imagine as the frontman of Down Here you never maybe even thought to think of or dream of. Does it feel like when you zoom out, when you take a wider lens on your career thus far, does it feel completely detached, like the first part of your career from the second?
It definitely feels like a new season.
Okay.
It doesn't feel detached per se. I mean, going into the Queen thing, when Down Here ended in 2013, I mean, the first Queen tour that I did overlapped with a Down Here tour. It was like literally happening at the same time, and Down Here actually did a couple shows without me, which was really weird for them and really weird for me. But I had to go do this other thing that I had committed to, and it was a very seamless transition for me as a musician. I mean, I was just kind of doing from one type of music to a slightly different kind of music.
Sure.
And it was more about the people that I was with all of a sudden that was the big transition for me, because I wasn't in that, I'll say, the bubble of Christian CCM, and which I had been in for 13 years, which you really get used to, and it becomes a very safe place. And all of a sudden, I wasn't in that environment anymore. So it was an interesting time.
Did it feel unsafe? Or
no, I'm pretty firm in what I stand for, and I was never the wild child. My brother took care of all of that. So I'm pretty good at falling in line for whatever the purpose is at hand. And I think there's a bit of a natural leadership that comes out of that. My personality somehow that people sort of sometimes look up to, and so maybe it's the Enneagram 9-ness of my being a peacemaker that just kind of. It's weird, I've had it said to me more than once in my life. It's like whenever you are in a situation, it just feels more calm and peaceful, and I really like that about being a 9. There are things I don't like about being a 9. But
as with all our numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and there's some responsibility that comes with that if you are this kind of neutralizer, this...
diffuser.
Yeah, diffuser. Do you feel like from a spiritual perspective, being now in more quote-unquote what we call secular settings, do you feel like that has had a certain impact on your faith or on how you define your faith or how you even experience it?
No, I think I've pretty much formed, the basis, the foundation for my faith earlier in life. Even before I was in a Christian band, even before I went off to Bible college in the 90s. Like I said, I grew up in a pastor's home, and so of course for a good chunk of my youth, my parents' faith was my faith. And then I went through the whole thing where you have to figure out why do you believe this? Is it just because of your parents? Is it not? Is it more than that? And so I think I'd gone through those motions pretty early in life. And so when I got into a situation where I was maybe outside of my comfort zone a little bit, there wasn't really any fear involved. I mean, it was kind of exciting to just kind of branch out and be a little more well-rounded when it comes to, my understanding of the world I live in.
I was thinking about how, the first, with Down Here, with the band, as a songwriter and as an artist, you're really putting a lot of your personality from a penmanship standpoint into the music that you're then offering to people and inviting them to listen into. With some of the more recent success with, setting your voice to some of the world's most famous songs, have you ever felt, like, has there been a tension there with as thinking about, am I still expressing myself as an artistic being, or has it been like a kind of a welcome, space?
Once you're a singer-songwriter, it's hard to view anything other than that as better than. There's nothing better than writing your own music and performing your own music and seeing a crowd react really well to that. But over the last few years, I think my thinking about that has changed a lot. Down Here never really played covers at all unless we were leading worship, and every now and then we, in the second half of our career, when the Freddie Mercury comparison started, we started playing, maybe a Queen song every now and then, but it was very rare. We were very strong-minded songwriters, and we wanted to get our message out. And but once, obviously that changed a lot when I started singing in a tribute band, which I never imagined myself singing in a tribute band growing up. As soon as I started playing guitar at the age of 14, I was writing my own songs. But it was a shift in my thinking of what I am as an artist. Maybe not so much as what I am as a person, because that'll never change, but what I am as an artist before that was founded on the fact that these are my songs. You hear what is directly coming from my heart. But I've also always said that there's value in music, because if we believe that music is a gift from God, then we can't say that only music that talks about God is a gift from God.
Right.
So there's just so much to learn outside of CCM music, just musically, and just different ways of expressing emotions like anger and disappointment and all that stuff. And it's been really enriching for me as an artist to get to know some other artists' stuff, and just seeing the value in it, even if it's not written from the exact standpoint that I believe.
Yeah, well, what you're saying, that that belief that music is this kind of spiritual connector. I think music, most of us, if we thought about it, no matter even what stream of religion or faith that you're coming from, music has a way of connecting us to one another and to God. So then when I think about a Christmas record and these Christmas recordings, it seems kind of natural with where you are in your career right now, with Christmas being some of the most covered tunes and desired, people desiring cover of those. But because of that connection, that spiritual connection with music, do you feel like these songs, more than just your kind of run-of-the-mill cover or another average cover, that these songs specifically have more personality for you, more personal expression? Are they, in your own experience, or as a spiritual person?
Definitely. I've known these songs almost all my life, the Christmas classics, and as a musician, whether you like it or not, you're always picking apart music and internalizing it and thinking, how would I sing this? And especially with sacred Christmas music, it's more meaningful because it connects on a deeper level with me. So yeah, I would say there's a difference between me covering "Don't Stop Me Now" and the First Noel. Definitely there's
What?
Although I don't like to be stopped.
Right.
But yeah, there's definitely obviously a deeper connection because it reaches deeper into my soul inevitably. So
yeah, which that goes in. We were talking about Advent. Like the thing I love about Christmas season, and what I didn't necessarily grow up with, was this kind of understanding of kind of the lingering parts of the season. This I've always thought it's interesting that Christmas time, where we celebrate it in the calendar, is at like the darkest point of the calendar as far as the environment around us, and yet for my belief system, for me as a Christian, it's like my jumping point of hope, like looking for that kind of flicker in the dark type thing. Advent, the season of expectancy. What has that been for you? How has Advent evolved or even been introduced to your life as you've become an adult, and even potentially through, music?
When the idea of Advent for me kind of falls into that Orthodox liturgical thing that I didn't really understand much growing up. It wasn't really a part of my church tradition. We were more of just like a Bible church without a whole lot of roots in. It's a Canadian thing, it was its own thing. It wasn't like rooted in, old Protestantism, but not that there's anything wrong with that at all. But I feel like Advent
Were you
is
Catholic?
I was not, but I was in a very Catholic part of the world. But yeah, when I think of Advent, I think, what is that? I mean, it sounds like you were waiting for something, and obviously I understand the waiting of the Jewish people. But every time I think of orthodoxy and celebrating liturgical, holidays like stuff, I feel like there's an element of acting involved, like on Good Friday. It's like we have these very somber, services, and the lights are down low, and we're concentrating on Jesus' death, which was horrible, and at the same time we know the outcome, and we know what happened, and you just can't push away the joy that is coming on Good Friday, just like you can't push away the joy of Jesus' birth, when you're remembering just the longing and the horrible history that the Jewish people went, whether they were being oppressed by the Egyptians or the Babylonians or the Romans.
Sure.
It's all kind of congruent to me. The whole season is just like, this is about Jesus' birth, and there's so many things you can unpack about that story. My favorite thing about the story of Jesus is just how God flipped expectation on its head. And that's how I approach the Christmas season, is that Advent is about waiting for this flicker of light, which of course the Jewish people were highly expectant of for centuries, and they just almost losing hope about it. And then all of a sudden this baby comes, and this guy starts to declare that he's God, the Son of God, and it just wasn't what they expected. And they weren't expecting a flame. I think they were expecting an explosion in the sky or something like that. But it's so beautiful that God would make what seems small really the most important things. And that's what I sort of focus on in my faith, is that to remember the small things like humility and grace and forgiveness and love, and that God flips all of that on its head and says, these are the important things. And that's sort of the biggest takeaway I have from Christmas every year.
It's kind of the magic of it, right? The fact that we actually all, it seems like in a more concerted effort, humanity receives the invitation to be humble, to extend grace, to show love. In a way, like, I think Advent is more than a posture for the holiday season, right? It's like this idea of expectancy, especially in a culture that's so kind of rife with strife, right?
Sure.
And a lot of dissension. Yeah,
and when you say that, it's a posture of expectancy that I think we should carry around all the time. And what is God going to do now? And that's just a good way to live.
Follow the star to a place unexpected. Would you believe, after all we've projected, a child in a manger, lowly and small, the weakest of all, unlikeliest hero, wrapped in his mother's shawl, just a child? Is this who we've waited for? 'Cause how many kings step down from their thrones? How many lords have abandoned their homes? How many greats have become the least for me? And how many gods have poured out their hearts to romance a world that is torn all apart? cross for me. Bringing our gifts for the newborn Savior, all that we had, whether costly or meek, because we believe. Gold for his honor and frankincense for his pleasure, and myrrh for the cost he'll suffer. Do you believe? Is this who we've waited for? Now, how many kings step down from their thrones? How many lords have abandoned their homes? How many greats have become the least for me? Oh, how many gods have poured out their hearts to romance a world that is torn all apart? How many fathers gave up their sons for me? Only one did that for me. Oh,